mà níbẹ̀ yẹn ò nílé lóko. Ẹ sì kú dédé àsìkò yìí. Hello everyone, it's Aderonke again. I hope your day is going well. Today, I'd like to talk about the word Faaji and the fact that it's not a Yoruba word. So, perhaps while learning Yoruba, you've come across this word or been introduced to this word. It's important for you to know that it's not a Yoruba word. The origin is Arabic, and the interpretations that we give to it in our language and culture have nothing to do with the original form of the word. This is how Faaji is written in Ajami, in the dumbed down, so to say, version of Arabic that the Fulanese introduced to the north and southwestern parts of present-day Nigeria and other places, other neighboring regions. Faj is to be surprised. So there are forms of the word that involve surprise. In present-day Nigeria, when you hear Faaji, we typically use the word in the context of celebration or merriment or fun or pleasure or enjoyment and things like that. But in its original form, the word was related to surprise and is still related to surprise. So we're just doing our own thing, completely different from the source of the word. I found this dictionary online, a dictionary of modern written Arabic, and you can also check it out yourself. Faja and Fajia. See, this is Faj. See how it is written. Faja, Fuja'a. Many times Arabic spellings will be different from Ajami spellings. Again, it's dumbed down Arabic that people can understand quicker and easier for the purpose of religion spreading, so to say. So it's not the original form, but all these have to do with something coming suddenly or something coming unexpectedly. And you see, this one says confront. So again, typically you don't expect confrontations, but they come. Surprise, attack in the negative form, assail, faj'atan, suddenly, unexpectedly, fuja'atan, and I think they have masculine and feminine words as well, just like in French or what other language has that masculine feminine forms of one word. We don't have that. Fuja'i, mufaja'a, to be surprised, mufaja'at, and I think at is for the females, but you can see all the different forms of the word. The word is homonymic. The Arabic word, the original word, is homonymic, if you can't already tell. So I found this, faja'a, see, to inflict suffering, to afflict, to distress, to make miserable. Fujia, see, even spelled similarly, even pronounced similarly, the word has homonymic tendencies. So I found this, gluttony. So I don't know if the Fa'aj or Faja that they were, and you'd have to pardon my pronunciation, maybe the one they were referring to there is gluttony, but I would doubt it. I think when the word was first introduced to us, it would have been used in the concept of, or in the realm of, I have a surprise for you, or something like that. That would have been more likely than let's indulge in gluttony or something like that. I don't think it's this. I think it would have been used in the concept of, hey, especially you have to remember trade and things like that were going on. So it would have been, oh, I have a surprise for you. I'm going to give you some entertainment or some enjoyment as a surprise, for engaging in this trade or agreeing to this exchange and things like that. But also, I don't know what the Fulani culture is like in that regard. So these are the words, the English words that we often ascribe to the word Faaji, the bastardized form of the original that we use. And this is why it's important to dissect words. In theory or whatever, we can say, oh, colonization doesn't exist anymore and the past is gone. But of course, there's still a lot of mental colonization. And to move on, we need to be able to engage with our words in different ways. We need to engage with our words differently. With Western education comes a way of thinking and a way of living. And since that's how most of us are schooled, that's how we think. A lot of things were passed on to us orally. Whatever heritage, whatever inheritance, whatever anything that we claim to have, irrespective of the maybe works of art or I don't know, what other physical things do we have that have not either been stolen or destroyed by us and by outsiders? If we even share them, I don't know if they will go around. But especially since we have to also consider our brothers and sisters that are outside Nigeria, like in Cuba and places like that. If we share the works of our ancestors have left us, I don't think they will go around. What we have that will go around is the words. The words can go around. So we need to enjoy them. And that is why we need to dissect our words. We need to break them down. Because I'm going to get there in a second. If you break the word Faaji down into bits, you will realize very quickly that there's no way that it is an authentic Yoruba word for fun or enjoyment. There's just no way. You realize that immediately. But before we get there, I'm going to say this. Having emerged from dialects of Germanic peoples and having all this many influences, Latin, French, Dutch, Afrikaans, Hindu, Urdu, Arabic, you'll be surprised how many languages make up the English language. And not even just European languages or relatively dead languages like Latin, if it's not completely dying or even dead for daily use. You'll be surprised how many languages come together to give the English language meaning. So it's not feasible for the English to break words down. With words like butterfly, you can break it down and try to think, okay, how come we call this insect the butterfly? What about, because I know what butter is, and I suppose fly is something that flies, an insect particularly that flies. How come this particular insect is called that? You can try to maybe get that off the surface or maybe dig in. Or is it because this insect has the complexion of butter, or is it because they steal butter or they fly over butter or something like that? You can do your own research. But for a word like cat or dog, if you don't know the word that it's from, whether it's German, whether it's Latin, you cannot make sense of it. You cannot. So it's really difficult to break words down. Cat, what is cat? It's not easy to tell. So the English don't make it their culture to break words down. They typically leave it for the higher level. Oh, maybe when you spend a lot of money in student loans and you take a course in semantics or linguistics or etymology, then you can do that. You do it for 4 years or maybe 8 years at most. It's just something that you have to actually go the extra mile to do. If you really want to look into that, it's just not the general culture because of how unoriginal the language is. And that's why we've inherited that culture of just take a Yoruba word and slam an English word or a French word or slam something onto it as a translation. Don't bother to listen to what that word is saying in and of itself. The way that our words are formed, you have most of the time, especially for our nouns, you have noun makers combined with verbs to make nouns. And you will see as I break words down in a second. We have noun makers that combine with verbs to make nouns. And so what the ancestors thought, what our ancestors more specifically thought of a particular thing would be made known. If you're calling something a thing, if you've given something a name, what our ancestors' thought process was, what verb, what action word was involved in that, where was their mind at, you can always tell when you break the words down. You don't have to take a course in semantics or linguistics or English or etymology to do that. If you're fluent in the language to a degree, you'll be able to do that. And by doing that, you would get closer to your ancestors, if that makes sense. You feel closer to them. Your own culture starts to make sense to you. Things start to make sense. Your eyes start to open, and I'm not just talking about your physical eyes. So it's going to be the beginning of our mental decolonization when we start to do that. And when I saw this map, I laughed. It's not a chart of what is supposed to be the languages that make up the English language. I just found it interesting that nowhere, especially where I found this chart, nowhere did they mention all the other languages, especially languages that are supposed to be third world languages, supposedly. Nowhere were those other languages referenced. So typically when other languages like Hindu and Twi and other languages like that are involved, they typically put unknown or other. I don't know if it's arrogance or whatever, but they don't like to give credit where it is due. That's why I said, from referring to monarchs as chiefs instead of kings or queens, before, during, and after the colonial eras, to dismissing economic, social, and religious contributors from third world regions, there's a historical record of not giving honor where and when due. So, one of the other languages is Hindi and Urdu, and I'm going to show you a Wikipedia page in a second that shows not a complete list, but a list of English words from India that make up the English language. So there are some words here like punch and nirvana and mantra, of course, and mogul and lute and I think I saw thug somewhere, typhoon, and pretty interesting. I think the most interesting to me was the word shampoo. I had to confirm on Google that it is even correct. I think I heard it somewhere once, but I may not have paid attention, and then I saw it again from champna or so, massage as part of the Turkish bath process from India. And then I did my research into shampoo and found that the Europeans have the Indians to thank for the shampoo that was introduced to England sometime within the past few centuries. I found this man, Sakeddin Muhammad, was an Indian traveler, surgeon, and entrepreneur, and one of the most notable early non-European immigrants to the Western world. Due to his foreign origin, his name is often spelled in various ways. His high social status meant that he adopted the honorific Sheikh, meaning venerable one. Muhammad introduced Indian cuisine and shampoo baths to Europe, where he offered therapeutic massage. He was also the first Indian to publish a book in English. So I just find that when you start to dig deep, then you start to find people that may be less celebrated than others, and you start to, apart from the shampoo, if you think it's too little to celebrate, you may start to find inventors and thinkers and poets and people that we've ignored all this while. So I feel like in the past, one common factor was that a lot of people did not get their credit across the board. There were a lot of people who did not get credit, especially people who were maybe victims of slavery or survivors of slavery, let me even put it that way. Because they were considered property, the ideas that they brought to the table were thought to be part of the bargain. So a lot of our own ancestors did not get any credit for anything. The Yoruba word that made it to the English dictionary that no credit is given for as well is shio, which is pronounced sho, and it came into the English vocabulary in the 17th century. So it was introduced from us in the 17th century. You won't find that much. The thing is, people don't even say that much anymore. I think it was more common in the 18th and 19th centuries. Maybe made it to the 20th. But it has become increasingly less popular than it was at some point. But you won't most of the time, if you see this word mentioned, you will just see the origin credited as from nobody, natural exclamation, but it actually came from the Yoruba word shio, and it's an expression that we use to express the exact same thing: contempt or impatience or disgust or just utter disappointment. Shio. So if you would like to learn more, you can watch this video. Even when it appears difficult or impossible or not feasible, it is very important for us to break our words down. It helps to gain a form of closure, if you would agree with me. Instead of me just looking for, what English word can I use to interpret this Yoruba word in my mind? And I find that a lot of people do that when they learning a language beyond, let me just use it for my boyfriend or to impress my in-laws, or which many people just want to do and move on with their lives. For people who have like an ancestral connection and they don't want to do it for anybody, learn anything for anybody, they want to do it for themselves. Going the extra mile is not just looking for whatever English words you can use to make sense of a Yoruba word in your mind. It is, okay, this is how the English think of this word, and this is the general culture regarding what this word means. How was it in the days of our ancestors? Did they do it the same way? That's where word dissection comes in. If you dissect the word Faaji, you will realize that it can't be a Yoruba word. Fa is to pull. Fa is to pull it. Ji is typically used in the context of letting something go. Fori jimi, fi jimi, mo fi jie. Some people would even say ji. You could say that's a different dialect or even a synonym. Fiji, Fiji, depending. So there's a dialectic, I won't say disconnect, there's a dialectical difference. So if you say G, it's correct. If you say G, it's correct. Let go, the G will be G and I. So there would be what looks like the Ni, what you would think of as the N after for G. G. It's different from G, to let go or give. So if you put those words together, Faaji, pull it and let go. Faaji. How possible is it that the word would have anything to do with celebration or fun or merriment? Pull it, let it go. Makes no sense. Makes no sense. Doesn't relate to fun at all, or relaxation, or any of those words at all. So it's important to break words down. Now let's look into the words that we can use instead. The words that are more original. The words that our ancestors will be able to recognize, or at least our earlier ancestors, before this word was introduced. The original words that make sense to us, not surprise or a lot of the names, even, I find it interesting that when you adopt a language that you don't really understand, you have to remember the Fulanese are like the middlemen between Nigerian Muslims, and the Arabs. There are lots of things that the Yoruba Muslims don't actually get right until they start to maybe travel to places like Saudi Arabia, or maybe start to advance in knowledge in one way or another regarding the religion. And I find it interesting that even the names the names are pretty interesting. Some of the names that some people are still naming their children, what is supposed to be Muslim names, are not as deep as it was presented to our ancestors who adopted Islam. So really shallow names are being given to children, but because they don't understand the root of the word, they don't understand the language, they can't speak the language fluently, they only know the portions that are relevant for religion, they don't find an issue with it until they maybe study further. They realize, oh, this name makes no sense. Igbafe is a word that is more original to us in the expression of enjoyment, pleasure, and fun, and it is, of course, more sensible to use, since the word Faaji or even Faj, the original form of Faaji, whatever, since that word has nothing to do with this makes more sense to use. Igba and afe are the words that combine to form Igbafe. Gba, afe. When afe comes after ba, to collect something. So not just ba, but other words that end with the do syllable, sometimes they will change to re to accommodate what is coming after. So ba is to receive, but receive what? And I'm going to explain it some other time on my Yoruba lessons for beginners series. I would address it in a specific video, how the tones of words may change depending on what is coming after, or depending on the context that it is being used in. If the word da is receive something, you change the tone to express receive something because of what comes after. Ba afe, this will change from ba to ba afe. They say receive afe. The e here is a noun maker, so you find one letter noun makers. They are typically vowels preceding verbs to form nouns. So sometimes it would be a, sometimes it would be a, sometimes it would be o, sometimes it would be o in the case of omo, sometimes it would be i in the case of iya, sometimes it would be a in the case of aga. You find noun makers combined with verbs to form nouns. The e here is a noun maker, the act of. Ba is to receive, to experience, to accept, to agree with. Ba. Afe is, you could say pleasure or fun, but you can break that down even further. It's not just pleasure or fun. Saying pleasure or fun will be just slapping an English word to it, or slapping English words to it so that we can move on. You can break that word down as well to kind of see what our ancestors thought of pleasure and fun. I don't know what the origin of the word pleasure is. For instance, I don't know if, and perhaps I should check, or what the origin of the word fun is. Perhaps I should check. I don't know. Is it German? Is it if I don't know German or I don't know Dutch, I won't be able to understand it in and of itself. Okay, for fun it says Middle English, but for pleasure it's placer. It's from Old French. So The word pleasure is from French. If I don't understand French, or whatever English, whatever French word the word came from in and of itself, I can't have a deep understanding of the word pleasure, or what the original people who formed the words, in this case the French, what they thought of pleasure, to have called it plaisir. If you check the Google dictionary, you will see the original form of the French word. I wouldn't know what they were thinking about for them to have decided that plaisir is the word that they want to use to express, pleasure. So it's what you can do as far as understanding the English language in depth is really limited. With the unoriginality comes you're just using the language. There's no emotion. Literally, there's no emotion, there's no thought. You just know that this is called this because that's what the English do. They just called that thing this word, and I have to do the same. I think that's the one thing that I find interesting, is how I don't know, maybe a bit disinterested people can be with thinking, okay, what was the word like at this time for them to have given this thing this name? For them to have, not necessarily to change it, you have to realize not everything is reviewed so that they can be changed, or maybe they used to use this word during the slavery era, so we mustn't use it anymore. Not necessarily. It's so that we can stay connected to the past, so that we don't repeat certain mistakes in the present. It reminds me of the Ghanaian Sankofa, where you always have to look back to see where you're coming from so that you can move forward. If you look at the word afe and you break it down, the a here is the noun maker, fe is the verb. It is this noun maker that combines with this verb to make it a noun. Fe is to want, to like, to desire. So afe is the thing that one wants or desires. So that's our ancestors' view of pleasure and fun. They thought of pleasure and fun as the thing that one wants. And isn't that true? Don't we all want some fun and some pleasure in our lives? So it's succinct and interesting, so our ancestors thought of fun as the thing that one wants, So it now you start to think about it. That's your heritage. That's your inheritance from your ancestors. You have this channel, this way of communicating with them. You don't have to start to divine, oh, my ancestors, can you please tell me what it's right there for you. You just have to explore. You just have to, because the English have not introduced it, that curiosity, that desire to connect to the ancestors through the words that they may have used, because the language is not original, because they've not encouraged that in you, doesn't mean you can't start to do it now. To look at the words. It's your heritage. Don't be afraid of it. Don't get tired of it. So while I can say affair is pleasure and fun, I can translate it even further and say the thing that one wants. So, but let's leave it as pleasure and fun here, and say igbafe, igbafe, igba, afe, igbe. Those are the three words that combine to form igbafe. Igbafe is the act of receiving and experiencing pleasure. That's enjoyment. So instead of saying jeka she Faaji, the proper thing to say would be jeka gbafe, jeka, let us experience pleasure, let us enjoy, rather than let us be surprised, which is often wrongly thought of as let us enjoy. The correct thing that would actually make sense is jeka gbafe. And there are other words. It's not just this word. There's the word igbadun as well. Igbadun. When you break igbadun down into the words that combine to form it, the act of be can be to carry, which would also relate to the concept of to sustain. When you carry something, you sustain it. You don't let it drop. So you sustain it. It also is used in the context of to live. Mo gbé ibẹ̀ fún ọdún mẹ́ta. I lived there for 3 years. If you want to think of it as maybe the first use of the word, you can say something along the lines of I sustained myself there for 3 years. Adùn is sweetness or pleasure. But we can also break this down further, because we can see the noun maker and we can see the verb. How adùn is sweetness. How come adùn is sweetness? The thing that is. Dùn is an adjective that means sweet. Iyọ̀ dùn ọbẹ̀. In our vocabulary anyway, many words are verbs and adjectives at the same time. It just depends on how you use them. So especially since we personify a lot, we give things that are not necessarily human-like qualities. Again, I'm using the English concept of teaching, but I'm trying to explain what personification is. The salt made the stew sweet. So now you're personifying salt. You're giving salt human-like qualities, as if it can, because it really can. But it is to the English that is special. I'll say, oh, that is a personification. You're personifying salt, but that is what the salt does. It doesn't have to be a human to do it. And other examples like that. But anyway, the thing that is sweet is adùn, or the thing that sweetens is adùn. So, still relating to the concepts of pleasure and fun, the thing that is sweet, the thing that sweetens, ìgbé adùn. Ìgbé adùn is the act of carrying, of living sweetness, of sustaining sweetness. With the English language, sometimes there are difficulties in certain moments. You see that some things don't necessarily translate over fully, but you can only try your best. The act of living sweetness. Now, I don't know how to explain it any further than that, but of living it, of being in it, of sustaining it, of putting yourself in it, of carrying it, upholding sweetness. We're upholding sweetness at this moment. We are enjoying ourselves. We're upholding sweetness. Maybe uphold actually did it at the end of the day, of upholding sweetness, of sustaining it at that moment. So rather than saying ẹ kú fàájì, you would say ẹ kú ìgbádùn, ẹ kú ìgbé adùn, ẹ kú ìgbádùn, ẹ kú ìgbádùn. Another word is àríyá, and there's a song by King Sunny Ade that goes, Sunny ti dé, ó ti dé, Sunny ti dé, jìtá dé, orin ti dé, Sunny ló ní àríyá, Sunny eléré àríyá, fàájì fẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀, ẹyẹ méjì kí n jẹ́ àṣà. Sunny ló ní àríyá, Sunny eléré àríyá, fàájì fẹ́ bẹ̀rẹ̀, ẹyẹ méjì kí n jẹ́ àṣà. I'll link it in the description or something. Remind me if I forget. It used the words àríyá and fàájì simultaneously in that song, so that's interesting to me. But àríyá, merriment, fun, even party. Let's break the word àríyá down so that we can understand it in and of itself, instead of just slapping the words fun or merriment onto it. The here is a noun maker. The thing that one is to see, but it's also to experience. So apart from seeing with the physical eyes, I see it, and to experience it is also rí. Ya is to be fast, at the basic level, but also you have well, lively, energized, if you're using ya in the adjectival context. There's a way that it can work as a verb as well. Ya ara, make your body fast. There's a way that you can use words as verbs and adjectives at the exact same time. So that's another interesting. I'll get there when I start to teach more grammar. But anyway, not like I'm not doing it now in other videos, but when I start to really focus on it. So the thing that one sees, the thing that one experiences that makes one lively, that makes one energized. If you want to put these words together, the thing that one sees or experiences that makes one well, that makes one energized, the thing that one sees and experiences and is well or energized. Aria. So that's what fun does to you. You know, when you experience it, you're well, you're energized. That's what our ancestors thought of having fun, of partying, of enjoying oneself. When you experience it, you feel well, you feel energized. Needless to say, it's recommended. Needless to say, it's really obvious. If they think of fun this way, then of course I don't think they would have been anti-fun. There are other words that start with Ari. I'm using this as a teaching moment as you continue to learn. Ari, ya here is to be well or energized, like I've explained in this context. Yo, Ari, yo, to jubilate. Yo is to jubilate. Jo is to dance. Ari, jo. Ari, ke, to care for, to cherish, to nurture, to pamper, to pet. These are words that relate to ke. Arige. This one is an oriki. The word arike is an oriki. Arige can also be an oriki, but it's less common. It's very rare. Very, very rare. Arike is probably 50 times more popular than arige. But it can also be an oriki. To pamper or pet. Aridunu, to be happy. So you may see these words used in certain contexts, but always remember that Ari would be the thing or person that one sees and one, or the thing or person that causes one to, the thing that causes one to be well or energized. Aria. The thing or person that causes one to jubilate. Ariyo. The thing or person that causes one to dance. Arijo. The thing or person that causes one to want to care for them or to want to cherish them or pet them. Arike. The thing or person that makes one want to pamper them. Arige. The thing or person that makes one happy. Aridunu. So when Ari, always think of these when you come across the word Ari. So instead of saying awa ni bi Faaji, you would say awa ni bi Ariya. Awa ni bi Ariya. Instead of awa ni bi Faaji, you say awa ni bi Ariya. Akpeje is another word, and the common English translation for it is party. Akpeje. Akpeje. Is the noun maker here, the act of. Pe is to call. Je is to eat. So when you put these words together, the act of calling people, it's implied to eat. Of course, you can't be calling the thin hair. Even if it is a person, even if it is a force, seen or unseen, you're calling something to eat, and it has to be something that can eat. So people is implied. It could be other kinds of beings, like maybe animals and non-living people even. Akbeje, the act of calling to eat. So instead of saying Faaji yiga, you would say Akbeje yiga. Ga can be a verb, can be an adjective, but it's tall. If you use it in the context of a verb, it would be to expand. Ga kini fumi, expand it, enlarge it, raise it. Raise it could be to raise. Also, it could be an adjective, and in that context, the English word that would fit would be tall. However, in this context, you can also use it in other contexts. In this context, it is at a high level. It's It's up there. This gathering, this food gathering, when you call people to eat, very normal back in the day, and I suppose it's still normal now, irrespective of your nationality or culture. It's very common that people will offer food to other people. It's at a high level. Another word for host is alakpeje, especially if they're a party host. And they've called people, oh, come and eat and come and celebrate with me. Alakpeje, party host. So keep that in mind. When food is involved and they've said specifically, come and eat and celebrate with me, alakpeje, party host. So those are 4 words. You'll be surprised that there are several more that you can use to express, whether metaphorically or literally, that you can use to express that feeling of enjoyment and pleasure and fun. So it's not because we're lacking our own words that people tend to stick with Faaji more. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your support. Thank you for your time. Thank you to my patrons and my YouTube members, those who support me monetarily. Thank you. I cannot appreciate you enough. Also, please feel free to check out my Etsy store. I have an Etsy store and I have some things for sale. Of course, there will be more things added soon. Feel free to check it out and patronize me. And I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your day and bye for now.
ọ̀kan ní bó tètè wọ̀ ní ọmọdú mi lọ́ọ́ mòde ta ló lè jíjó lè láàfin ọba àfìyá láńlọ́ká láńlérè ló lè jíjó lè láàfin ọba olè jíjó lè lólè láńlọ́ká mọ́mọ́ jòlè ọ̀gá gbogbo wa mọ́lé àlùjànnú inú èso ọ̀fọ́mọ́gbẹ̀rù lórí àgbà mọ́jà sọ́gbà.